It's the Auburn Observer Podcast. Free for the people. It's probably be our last podcast for a little while. So we're gonna leave you with something. Don't worry. Justin Ferguson here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Still here after Auburn comes up here to play Purdue. We will talk about that. We'll break down Auburn's loss to Purdue and look ahead. There's one more game before Auburn starts SEC play, but it's against Queens. And so we'll start to kind of spin ahead to the second half of the season, the post-holiday break, because Auburn will have a few days off here for guys to spend time with their families before getting right back at it right after Christmas. But yes, I'm here in Indianapolis. Dan is in Tuscaloosa, I believe, as we record this. You'll hear it on Monday. Dan's in Tuscaloosa because on Sunday the Troy Trojans will be playing there. How are we doing, Dan?
I'm doing all right. Ahoy, Justin, and yeah, appreciate all the folks tuning in. Shout out to the Sickos and the Peck Pack and the Insiders, the whole, all the different gangs. It's like the Warriors, right? We got all these different gangs here, listening to the Observer Podcast, and yeah, it's great to be back in Tuscaloosa. Trojans looking to take on undefeated Alabama on Sunday. Alabama team ranked in the top 25 in the AP poll in women's basketball, and Troy off to the best start in program history, and really playing well. They've already beaten one SEC team on the road this year at Missouri, looking to make it a second one. Shanda Rigby, for all she's done at Troy, this would be Troy's first ever win over a team ranked in either of the top 25 polls in college basketball. So, yeah, looking to make history tomorrow and pick up a big win before you swing into league play at the start of the new year.
Yeah, so we're recording this like very late on Saturday night, Sunday morning. So you won't hear it until Monday morning. We'll have this out on Monday morning. The observations from the Purdue game will have been out by now as well. We are recording remotely, Dan, but do you want to play the Wings 94-3 game?
Yeah, okay. I'm always up for a game of Wings, and I know I guessed Van Halen last time.
I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. It's not that kind of Wings 94-3 song. There's a lot of that glam or hair metal or like that kind of adjacent stuff. So this is decidedly different.
Okay,
I think it was U2 the last time. It's not U2.
Okay.
But it is different. It is different.
Okay.
It is a what I would consider a classic, rock song.
Okay, and I'm not going to try to pry any more information out of you here. For the spirit of the game, I'm gonna go earlier than U2. Two Hearts Beat As One, which was the answer last time. Give me Lowrider by War.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna go Lowrider by War.
Okay,
as
you're
my
off
guess.
on this one.
Okay.
But I
almost went Evil Ways by Santana, because I know they play a lot of Santana on Wings
It's
too.
good guesses. You are off though. Currently playing on Wings 94-3 as we record this. Running Down a Dream by Tom Petty.
Oh, you know what? And Tom Petty frequently guessed on this game. So you can't go. Tom Petty is a staple of Wings 94-3, and for good reason. Maybe the most played artist.
Yeah.
On
Wings 94-3
in 2025.
Leppard, Tom Petty. You hear a lot.
I used to joke Billy Idol would make a lot of appearances.
You hear a lot of Fleetwood Mac on Wings 94.
Fleetwood Mac, deservedly so, and the Cars were always on Wings too. But shout out to, even though we're not in the studio, shout out to the folks at Wings 94-3.
100%. All right, so we have a basketball podcast. Nothing kind of football related that has happened since our last podcast. We put out our last podcast on Friday afternoon. So if you want to hear us talk about the outgoing transfers for Auburn football and just kind of the, I think it's really, since we've done the podcast, like the increasing narrative around, kind of NIL roster management, the Hugh Freeze era and the Alex Golesh era, and how things will be different, or how it's approaching to be different, and how that's affected the roster so far. You can go check that out, and that is a podcast that's behind the paywall. So if you're listening to this and you're a free listener, we appreciate you, but it'd be a great time to jump on board and listen to that part of the podcast. It was like our first probably 20, 30 minutes of the premium pod from over the weekend that you can check out. Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to subscribe. We're still running that special, 25, the first 25 days of December, 25% off. So it's $45 for your first year of the Observer if you take advantage of the deal. And that includes gift subscriptions if they are a new subscriber. You can go to auburnobserver.com, sign up there. There's buttons if you're getting the emails. There's links in the description. Easy stuff. You don't have to have a code or a link or anything like that to get it. And you'll get all of the podcast, all the newsletters sent straight to your email inbox as soon as they drop, covering Auburn football and men's basketball for a whole year. And that'll get you all of next football season and into next, middle of next basketball season. So it's a really good time to jump on board. I want to say here real quick about that deal. Lots of people taking advantage. Dan, I checked, and I don't think it registers until the if a subscription goes active, on Christmas Day or something like that. I think it counts later. But even if it doesn't, it's still good. We've had over 70 people jump on board with this special offer since we started at the beginning of the month. So that's 70 plus new subscribers jumping on board. So we really, really appreciate y'all for coming on in. All right, Dan, let's talk. We're going to do an observe for. We're going to team up on this one. We're going to do an observe for from Auburn's 88-60 loss to Purdue on Saturday up here in Indianapolis. And then Dan and I are going to do an observe for about kind of what we're looking for, maybe kind of the big narratives, the big focus points, I think, that we have for Auburn basketball as they go into the second half of the season, as they go into conference play. I say second half of the season. They'll play more games on the back end, but just the post-Christmas, they play Queens, and then they open it up against Georgia in 2 weeks in SEC play. So we'll talk about that. So we'll spin it forward since this podcast is coming out on Monday. And so we didn't want it just to all be stuff about a game that happened 2 days ago. And also, like I said, this might be our last podcast for a little while because we haven't figured out our schedule yet. But, with Christmas coming at the end of next week, that's usually around the time we usually record our premium pods. We'll see. But we'll probably, take a few days off before we get to our next one. Honestly, unless something crazy happens or if there's like a certain gap that we want to hit, it might be a situation where you might not hear a new podcast from us until a week from now or a little over a week from now. We'll see. Just keep your eyes and ears out for that if you are a subscriber. All right, here we go. Auburn losing 88-60 to Purdue. Dan, Stephen Pearl after the game was very optimistic compared to what he usually is after losses. And I wrote about it in the observations. I thought that was pretty telling. I think this team really understands that there's a direct quote, we can't keep getting blown out like this in games. But I think Auburn looks at it at this point where you're 8-4 and your 4 losses have come against 4 of the top 8 teams in the country, maybe even higher than that. They've all been number 1 at some point in some form or fashion. And 3 of them were lopsided losses, and the first 2 were not good at all. And again, this result doesn't look good. I don't know if you got the same vibe, Dan, that I did, but I thought watching this game in Indianapolis on Saturday night, the final score was a lopsided one. I thought the way the game played out felt different than Arizona and Michigan. And that's something because the result's the result. But if you want to be process-oriented, you felt like maybe the process was better, even if it didn't result in a better result, to pardon the pun there. What did you think about it? Just kind of gut reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much better you could expect this Auburn team to play against this Purdue team, right? Like when you think about some of the matchups. I mean, I know that
I believe that on defense to an extent. Yeah. Offense was, whew. Yeah,
I think especially when you look at Purdue's, like at the way Purdue was able to attack on offense, like Auburn was. I mean, I think that like that's a Purdue team that is among the very best in the nation at what they do. They're huge. They shoot it well. They share the ball. They've got a lot going for them that's going to make it tough for a lot of teams to match up and hang with them for 40 minutes. You're right. I think offensively, Auburn, they had some of the same problems that you'd seen creep in against teams like Arizona and Michigan, right? When you think about the when it feels like when the adversity starts to really stack up against this team, when the lead starts to increase and when the chips are down, you don't see as much team ball. You see guys more willing to try to shoot, to do it themselves and to sort of try to get Auburn back into the game that way. You see ill-advised, sort of risk-taking there, and that's something that you would hope that as Auburn gains more experience together. This is still a new team, even if it's we're 12 games into the season now, but it's still a team still figuring each other out. Still a lot of guys that are playing their first year of Division I basketball. So some of this stuff might work itself out over the course of the year. But it is I think it's got to be tough for a team that won these games and won some of them convincingly last year, right? For a fan base that watched this team win these games last year to suddenly find themselves in a drastically different spot a year later, not unlike what Purdue had to navigate, going from a conference champion, national champion type team to a team that quickly had to start rebuilding themselves.
Yeah, Matt Painter after the game said that in his post-game press conference. And he said, look, last season that team had so much size. They had that swagger about them. They knew they're going to come in and beat you.
He's talking about last year's Auburn team.
Last year's Auburn team. And they did. I mean, they whooped Purdue last season. And that game, Purdue had to go on a big run late in the game to even make it remotely salvageable in terms of the final scoreline. And he said, last season we were a team that was coming off of a fantastic year. We didn't have a great team. We had a pretty good team. And he says, I see a lot of that in Auburn right now. It's like they've got some guys. They just got to get better as the season goes on. And he feels like they're going to be able to do that, but they're not one of the elites. And this Auburn team, it was always going to be a uphill climb to be one of the elites this season. Like, it was 10 new guys, only Tahaad Pettiford back, first-year head coach. We'll see how they shake out in SEC play. But, Dan, how many people heading into the season would have said, all right, Auburn's going to lose to Houston, Michigan, Arizona, and Purdue. And you look at it, if you looked at it at the beginning of the year, it was like, yeah, that's what the numbers say is probably going to happen, because those are those. It's obviously the process and how you got to that point, and I think it is a big shift because you were playing those games, you were doing that last season. But I thought Pater made a great point last season, from this game where he said, I see Auburn as a lot of what we were last year, which was we're pretty good. We've got some weapons. We just got to get better as the season goes on, and you know that you are not one of the elites. And obviously Purdue has gotten back to that point this season. And last season Purdue, Dan, lost to Auburn in pretty convincing fashion last season. They lost by 18 to Marquette away from home. They lost by 11 to Penn State in conference play. They took some tough losses. Indiana really got them. Wisconsin, they had close losses to Michigan State, Illinois. Got blown out in the Big Ten tournament. And then what happens at the end of the year? That Purdue team, loses 10 games in the regular season, goes 13-7 in Big Ten play. They get a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, make it to the Sweet 16, lose to a Houston team, that played for the national championship by 2 in the Sweet 16. So I say all that to say this: Auburn's going to have to work to get to that point, but I think there are some parallels where it's just like, this is not a elite championship contender team. It is a step back. This is a bridge year. And I thought it was really telling that a guy like Matt Painter, who's coached a lot of teams and has won a lot as a basketball coach, looked at it and said, I see a lot of us in them this year. It's just you're having to adjust to this ain't going to be like it was last season. but what can you do to make the most of it, and how much better are you going to get as time goes on?
And it's still a question of, what is it going to look like when you get into SEC play, right? I mean, Auburn has played 4 teams currently in the top 10. They've lost all 4 of those games, right? And 3 of them were routes. And I mean, so you can wonder how that translates to when you get into SEC play. Like, what does that tell you? And yes, there are other games to consider too, but like, what does that tell you about when Auburn goes to Athens in 2 weeks and plays a Georgia team that has a respectable season going themselves, in the top 25 right now.
Number 1 offense in college basketball by scoring, but statistically Auburn's played 6 teams better than that Georgia team's played this year. And so it's like, okay, you've been battle tested. And Pearl, I thought, took a very optimistic tone and said, look, I know people don't want to hear this. And he even made a mention at one point about the offense. He said, I think I'm going to watch the film and I'm going to be a lot more positive about what I saw on it than people back home are going to be. And I think he's just one of those, like, I think you have to live with that. This game was so different than I think the Arizona and Michigan games because I saw Auburn fight on defense. I saw Auburn do some good stuff on offense at times, They didn't turn the ball over much early. They were hanging in there rebounding. They're just missing shots. And Purdue was hitting a lot of shots. And look, this is the 4th straight season Purdue has been in this building, where the Pacers play. So they're used to playing there and shooting here. And they're the number 1 offense in college basketball on KenPom. And they look like it. And they hit shots. And, we'll start with this. It's, for the observer here, my first point, it's a make or miss game. And that's what basketball is at the end of the day. I say football is about finishing drives. Basketball is about buckets. You either hit your shots or you don't. And you can have a really good defense. You can do all this. But, like, if a team's hitting tough shots and you're not hitting open shots, that's how the game's going to go. And vice versa. If you get a lot more open shots and you hit them. This game, Auburn really, I thought, did a good job at times of limiting what Purdue wanted to do or taking away some of Purdue's top scoring options, like not letting Clough get going, not letting Trey Kaufman-Renn get going as much. And I thought when KeShawn Murphy left, there was a big difference because when Murphy was off the floor, Renn got Trey Kaufman-Renn, who is an elite scorer, and he hit so many tough shots. With that post-up game, he's got that mid-post shot he's got. At times, they did really well on him. They didn't let the 7'4" kid go nuts on him. Braden Smith was not an effective shooter or scorer in this game. How about this one? This was the stat that I think was probably the most stunning one of this game for me. Auburn, Fletcher Lawyer was 0 of 7 from the field and 2 of 10 from deep. That's one of the best pure shooters in college basketball. Braden Smith had 11, but 6 of them were at the free throw line. But you can't take everything away, and that's the thing, especially when your defense is an elite. You can't take everything away. And what happened in this game, Dan? Purdue hits 12 threes in this game. They're 12 of 26, which is a nuts number. But look at who hit them. 4 of 7 from C.J. Cox, 3 of 3 from Jack Benner, and 4 of 6 from Jakari Harris off the bench. Okay? Those guys combined to go 11 of 20 from deep, right? 11 of 16 from deep. I can't count. 11 of 16 from deep. All right? Here's the thing. Heading into this game, Purdue had played 4 games in the month of December. All right? I just looked it up. All 3 of those guys matched their total of three-pointers they had hit in the month of December in this game alone. So it was guys who hadn't been hitting those shots. A couple weeks ago when Purdue lost to Iowa State, got blown out at home, they go 6 of 14 from deep. Or I'm sorry, 4 of 18 from deep. Nobody really gets going. And I think Auburn said, okay, we're gonna try to limit their stars and see if other guys can beat us. And they did. They hit shots. And you didn't. There were, Dan, some times that I thought Auburn's offense especially in the second half, got stuck in the mud a little bit or was trying a little too much, I thought they were also good looks, and you just missed them. 60 points, fewest they've had in a game in 2 seasons. You got to go back to the Kentucky loss a couple of seasons ago. But, I mean, they scored 60 points, but I didn't think it was like, oh, and Auburn played terribly on offense and didn't get quality looks. They didn't really turn the ball over a ton. They got the shots they wanted. They just didn't hit them a lot of the time, I thought. I mean, there were stretches, of course, where I think the offense went down. But for the majority of this game, I'm with Stephen Pearl on this. I do think Auburn ran the offense they wanted.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, you can sort of break this down into, into front court and back court, right? You can talk about because Auburn. I mean, I think that you'd love to be able to score around the basket against a team like Purdue and be able to take the fight to them, but they're gigantic. 7
of 16 on layups in this game, and they missed a few open ones. There were some that obviously Purdue's size made an impact, but I mean, Auburn smoked a few in this game.
And then you're going to need to hit your threes against a team like Purdue as well. I mean, these are aspects where like a tough night shooting against Purdue just it puts you behind the 8 ball with in a game like this.
Yeah.
because there are only so many ways you can attack this Purdue team, and if you're when you can get good looks, if you can't convert them, it's really tough to find a path where that's going to lead to victory.
Auburn goes 7 of 25 from deep. It's 28%. They're 3 of 14 guys not named Kevin Overton, who had 22 in this one. I mean, KeShawn Hall goes 2 of 6 from deep. Tahaad Pettiford goes 1 of 5. Tahaad leaves the game early with an ankle injury. He had a walking boot on after the end of the game. Went out to the huddle. We'll see. Auburn doesn't play for another 9 days, so that break I think is coming at a good time if you're having to deal with that. We'll obviously have to monitor that, moving forward. But Pearl said after the episode, you just had to have other guys step up, and you didn't. And I thought 7 of 25 from deep. I think Auburn hit some of their more forced ones in this game. And missed some of the catch and shoot ones that they really, really liked and really wanted to have. And then on top of that, obviously, just weren't able to get going. Todd's 2 of 7 from the field. KeShawn Hall's 5 of 11 from the field. You don't between Sway, Caden Magwood, Elijah Freeman, and Philip Jovich, all 4 of those guys only hit 1 shot each. KeShawn Murphy hit 2 early shots, and that was it in this game. He also left the game early. Once again, he has just been battling so much in terms of injury. And so, again, like Purdue had guys who usually don't hit at high clips for them, and at least in high volume, do, which overcame the fact that guys like Lawyer, guys like Smith weren't really scoring as much, shooting as much. I think Auburn did a decent job considering the circumstances against the front court. I think Kaufman-Renn went nuts there in the second half, especially when Murphy was off the floor, and he's such a tough cover. But, yeah, I think it just came down to, like, Purdue hit some tough shots and hit some open shots, hit a lot of open shots. They punish mistakes really, really well. They're the best offense in the country. Meanwhile, I think Auburn just had such a cold shooting game all the way around that it was just so hard to get anything going because you couldn't fall back on, okay, let's get downhill and score around the basket. Well, it's a lot tougher in this game. Let's get to the free throw line. Purdue doesn't foul. And Auburn goes to the line 16 times in this game, and more than Purdue did by 6. You knew that was going to happen coming into this one, and you just knew it was not going to have to be a chunk of your offense. Like, you had to adjust. You had to hit shots. You had to hit shots in this game. You had to be shot makers like you were against St. John's and NC State and other games, and you just weren't. And the game gets out of hand in the second half.
So before we get into the 4 major things we want to talk about,
that was my first one.
Okay.
That was my first one. I would just say my first one. It's just a make or miss game. I thought Purdue hit the shots that Auburn didn't, and that's how it got real out of hand.
I'd sort of be curious to know like what you view as, even acknowledging the quality of the competition, what you view as the weaknesses of this team, things that could pop up when you get into conference play.
We can talk about that later. We can talk about it later.
Because I would, because the reason I bring it up is because I do wonder, even though Michigan and Arizona and Purdue are three of the best front courts in college basketball, like it's going to be a war around the basket, and I just wonder if from a from the players they have available, and then especially when you get into like the depth, right? Like if Auburn has enough in the front court. Once you get, and I thought that some of those limitations were on display tonight against Purdue.
I thought it was. I didn't think Auburn did enough to overcome their lack of size. Right? Like you knew this. And let me say something really quick here, because this is going to become a theme and a thing. I think Auburn, roster-wise this season, wishes they had more up front. And obviously, KeShawn Murphy continuing to deal with injuries is tough. Emeka Oporon being out for the season is tough. Like, those things are things you have to deal with. But, there's this thought, I've seen several people tell me this, that is like, well, why did we go away from having a great front court when it was what we leaned on the last few seasons? I think two things here. Number one, Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell were very special. That was a special combination that very few teams in college basketball are going to have. They were a main reason why Auburn was so awesome last season is because they had stuff that people didn't. It was a very rare pairing. It was also a pairing that was in the third year together, right? Dylan Cardwell was in his fifth season. Both those guys were playing their fifth seasons of college basketball. So that's one thing.
They weren't guys who joined the team together in one off season, right? No. Like they're not the way that you Auburn this year, that largely had to replenish in the portal and replace a lot of those outgoing guys from 25. You didn't. Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell were not two guys that joined a team as super seniors to play one last year together.
And my second point is, let's all be honest with one another. Auburn tried to fill out their front court. They did. They went after big name guys. They didn't land them, but it wasn't due to a lack of trying. I think that's the thing, is like you don't want to play the results here. It's like, okay, well, Auburn didn't have enough in the front court. Why don't I have enough in the front court? Well, that wasn't their plan. That wasn't their plan. I can think of two guys right now, right? Yaks at Michigan, and then a big one this weekend, JQ at Kentucky. Those are two guys Auburn went after and really wanted it, and did not close the deal with them. What does a guy like that? What could have changed? And you didn't get those guys, and so you had to go down your list. You had to bring in a JUCO guy. You had to bring in a European guy, and knowing coming in that it was going to take time with them, but we wish they would have more, obviously, but let's not act like they didn't try. On top of that, Bruce Pearl was talking about how this team was going to need to overcome this and do the things to overcome a lack of size in the front court all the way back in the spring, right? Early in the summer, when he was still the head coach. He was talking about those things. And I think that's my thing there, Dan. It's like, you don't have elite size, and you have lost to 3 teams with elite size. Okay? How many teams have that size moving forward? I think Florida has it. I think Kentucky could have it if they continue to. They look really good against St. John's on Saturday with a full strength team. Not everybody's going to be like that, but I do think even in those games, like you're saying, it's going to be a war. There's going to be teams that are going to be physical. They might not be elite trees down there, but they're going to be big. They're going to be teams that are going to be bigger than Auburn. To me, it's like, can Auburn do the things to overcome that? And in this game, we said it going in, force turnovers, get out in transition, hit shots. Like, your guards have to step up. Your guards have to step up and help out the fact that you are undersized and thin in the front court. You can't magically change that at this point. You can't wave a magic wand. It is what it is. And the best coaches and the best teams make the most out of it. And I thought in this game, Purdue did a really good job of making sure Auburn didn't get to that. Heck, Auburn had 3 fast break points all game. And they forced 11 turnovers, Purdue had 11 turnovers, which is more than Auburn did. But they only scored 4 points off of those turnovers. Like that, those are numbers that have to go up way higher if Auburn's going to play these big teams. It just has to.
And something as far as like dialing up the pressure to make up for the fact that you're undersized, like the thought that Auburn is both undersized and thin at guard, right, makes it that's a relatively tough combination because you want to dial up the pressure, you want to play more full court press, you want to run in transition, but that's really tough to do when the plan is for the starting backcourt to play 35 minutes apiece. Which if Tahaad hadn't gotten hurt, you look, and I think the plan was probably Tahaad and Kevin Overton playing, 7/8 of this basketball game, and it's tough to ask.
And throw Freeman in there as well.
Sure.
And here's the thing: I think Overton, I think Pettiford in a second year, and I think Overton with his experience, and I think Freeman with his potential, like that can be a disruptive backcourt on defense. You're going to have to get more from guys like Caden Magwood and, whatever else you can get. And obviously KeShawn Hall plays a part in that as well when he has to play the 3. But that's the thing is just like I could see the potential there. I could see they could be good. They have to get better because you're not magically going to get taller and bigger and deeper in the front court this season. If you do, like even if they pick up a guy, like Stephen Pearl said, if they find a way to add a guy, that's a midseason pickup. You're not getting a finished product, right? And so again, it's like you got to play the hand you're dealt at this point. And that's it for Auburn. I thought at times they were showing seeds of like being able to do that. You just didn't do it effectively enough in this game. And look, Purdue doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and they control the pace in pretty much every game they play. It's easier said than done. But when Auburn got offensive rebounds and they got turnovers and they got opportunities to run the floor against Purdue, they just didn't score off of them. And they didn't do the things that you have to do. And some of that's Purdue and some of that's just Auburn just missing shots.
So my second point there would be you've got good front court. I mean, maybe not Arizona, Michigan, and Purdue level front courts, but you've got good front courts between now and the end of the season that you're going to see, and Auburn's got to find a way, right? Even if it's even if they can't outsize guys, even if they can't out talent guys and out experience guys in the front court, they've still got to find a way. And the fact that you're as thin as you are at guard takes away one of the options, which would be to ratchet up the pressure and try to run more and try to turn teams' size from a strength to a weakness.
Yeah, and I thought Auburn did a better job of like pressuring in this game and get pressing up. There were a couple of times where they actually called a press and it just didn't work, and they got beat off of that. But you got to keep going in that direction. Kevin Overton said it after the game. He said, I think we executed our game plan on defense. A lot of it, we just didn't get the results we wanted. It's not like they went out there and they were like, what the heck are we doing? Like, what is this? You knew what you had to do in this game. You just didn't do it I would just say you weren't as effective at doing it on a consistent basis. And that's where they're at. That's where they're at in this one. But Dan, I think it's a really good point. It's like there are going to be teams that are big. I don't think they're going to be Michigan, Arizona, Purdue big. Florida and Kentucky might be the exceptions to that rule, but there are going to be some bigger teams. And look, I know St. John's hasn't covered itself with glory here recently, and I know Oregon has been off the – those were bigger teams that Auburn did a good job against. So if that's kind of more of the teams you're going to run into in the SEC in the front court, you have at least shown that you can hang. You've at least shown you can do that, but you got to do it on a more consistent basis. But – Dan, it's like I didn't come away from this Purdue game thinking, oh, Auburn just got completely dominated in the front court. It kind of went how I expected it to go. Auburn just didn't do enough things to kind of overcome it, right? They were hanging in there on the boards for a while. They were hanging in there in the paint for a while, and then when it got out of hand, it got out of hand. Well, part of the reason why it got out of hand, Dan, is that Auburn missed 10 out of his last 11 shots in this game. It just kind of all went like it's like the start of the first half the start of the second half against Arizona when it got out of hand for Auburn. It's like the final 8 minutes of this game kind of felt like that for Auburn, which is why Purdue got the lead that it got.
What you didn't have is you didn't have the Auburn surge that you probably needed at the beginning of the second half, right? Like Auburn didn't.
You were just trading punches.
Yeah, the lead didn't grow, but it was already 14 at halftime, right? And it's like you probably needed Auburn to make something of a run and win the first 5, 7, 10 minutes of the second half convincingly in order to make this game competitive again. Because if you're Auburn and you win the first 10 minutes of the second half by 8. Right, like you've cut the lead down to 6. If you can make a move and eat into this thing, then maybe the second half's going to be different. Instead, yeah, Purdue was able to. Like I don't know, did Auburn get within? Did they shave it under 14 at any point in the second half? Like I don't know if Auburn ever made the move.
15 was the closest that it got.
Yeah, like I think Auburn, they never really make that move in the second half, and Purdue can keep Auburn at an arm's length, and they can keep the lead comfortable, which is all they really needed after the way they finished the first half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just, again, you didn't string together. Like sometimes we talk about like going on runs can mean stringing together stops. This one is you couldn't string together shots. I mean, I'm looking at the shooting numbers in this game. Auburn hit consecutive field goals, 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4 times this game did they hit back-to-back jumpers, or it stretches of that. Meanwhile, Purdue had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those, including 4 of those stretches were 4 or more makes in a row. Meanwhile, Auburn never had one longer than 3. So it's like, that's it. Give Purdue credit. They did a really good job of attacking Auburn's weaknesses and scoring, especially in the second half. I think Auburn is, again, you just got to hit your shots. And that goes back to my first point, though. It's like, if you're going to overcome your lack of size compared to these other teams, and you're having, like, again, you have to adjust to this new life, to the broom and cardboard-less front court era, because that's what you're just going to have to deal with this year. You have to do the things, especially in the backcourt, to overcome that. And Auburn talked about playing better with their quickness, using their quickness and their athleticism more in this game. At times they showed it, but I think they could have, they probably felt like they could have done more. And that's where you get it. Okay, point number 3 for me. I'm going to say, this is a game where Auburn really showed that, Kevin Overton has been a big difference maker for them. KO has 22. He's 8-18 from the field, 4 of 11 from deep. Has 5 rebounds, which led the team. Had a couple assists, only had 1 turnover. But, it's one of those games like go back to that NC State game, go back to the St. John's game, go back to maybe some other ones that Auburn's played this season. If you want to say at this point, like, your big 3 on offense is, Pettiford, Hall, Overton, right? You got to have multiple of those guys going. And you really didn't have it in this game. And, go back to the Michigan game, it was really – Michigan and Arizona, it was really just Pettiford scoring in those games and played well, shooting the ball. This game, again, you have Overton, but you don't have anybody else really going. And so I think it shows that it's great to have your weapons, but might be common sense. Is it really underscored Auburn's need to have multiple guys really going in this game. I mean, Purdue had 5 guys in double figures. Auburn had 2, and then nobody else had more than 6. So in a game where Pettiford and Hall go 7 of 18 from the field and 3 of 11 from deep combined and only get to the free throw line once, they combined for, 3 assists and 4 turnovers. You need more. You need more out of those guys. And I don't think it's all 3 of them who have to be firing all cylinders. I just think you really saw the need where it's like you needed a second one of those to really. And again, they had their opportunities to hit shots and they just didn't.
Yeah, you weren't going to win this game with two players in double figures, right? Like that wasn't going to be enough offensively. And to me, it's not. I mean, Kevin Overton deserves the attention for the game that he played, but the point there would be like the question of where's the rest,
Yeah.
right? Like where's the rest of the the rest of the protein on the
right.
on the box score.
Tahaad, even before his injury, was having a tough game shooting the ball, right? And they're going to still continue to push to get more of him as an assist guy. KeShawn Hall did not really get it going until later in the game. That's Purdue. Painter said after the game that Purdue took those two, that was the focal point. We changed how we defended to go up against those guys. They were hedging harder on Tahaad, so he didn't get those pull-up jumpers off of screens that Auburn likes to run. And they said, hey, very simple. When Hall caught it down low, we were doubling. We were trapping him. We were not going to let him do it. And so they did a good job of that. But then when Auburn had, you still missed your opportunities, and you may feel like at times you kind of forced it. I will say, Dan, one of the weirdest things about this game, it's like after the game I saw, it was like, wow, Braden Smith had 14 assists, and Auburn only had 13 as a team. Well, Auburn only hit 21 shots, so that was a pretty good assist rate for them. It just kind of underscores. I mean, Purdue was just catch and shoot monster, even without Fletcher Lawyer going off. They were just doing so well. And Braden Smith looked like what Braden Smith did. He's fourth-year point guard. He's the best point guard in America.
Yeah, assists on nearly 66% of your made field goals is a decent rate. The problem is, again, just like talking about two players in double figures in the whole game, 21 field goals, not going to be enough to beat a team like Purdue. And yeah, where the rest of that offense comes from, I think that bench scoring was a hallmark of Bruce Pearl's teams.
Yep.
At Auburn the last couple of years, and this year's team, I think they're even with the move of Freeman to the bench, which they're continuing, the idea of starting Sebastian to give Auburn a little more bulk and a little more size and get Sebastian going in the front court. You're still talking about. I mean, it didn't really seem to pay dividends in Sebastian's game today.
Nah, he had the early foul trouble, and he just never got to get rolling.
Right, and then the guys on the bench really struggled to find any sort of rhythm when they got in the game too.
Auburn outscored 31-11 off the bench. The bench, there's only three guys that played, but 3 of 14 off the bench from the field. Of the 11 points Auburn scored on the bench, 5 of them came from the free throw line. So it's just like, got to do more. You got to get
your
more.
Your bench was 3 of 14 from the field.
Mm-hmm. You got to step up
in the game.
Yeah, you got to step up. You needed more guys to step up. And in a game where your top two scorers did not have great nights, like Kevin Overton, it was great to have that. But if you combine your top two scorers not having great nights with your bench not contributing, it's tough. But again, what does it go back to? On the times when Auburn ran good offense and had opportunities, did they score? Or did they get good looks? Mm. Right? It's just, that's the thing. You're going to go back on film. Auburn's going to go back on film. They're going to see missed open shots. They're going to see missed catch and shoot opportunities. They're going to see missed shots around the rim. There's a stretch in the first half where I think Auburn missed 3 straight at the rim. And it was like, yeah, Purdue's size matters, right? It impacts it. But, you feel like you could hit one of those at some point. And you just never really did. You never really took advantage of that. You got your second chance points. I mean, how about, Dan, in a game where Auburn had more offensive rebounds and Purdue had more turnovers, yet Purdue had way more points off of turnovers and more second chance points than Auburn did? That's, again, it's just you got to take advantage of your opportunities. And I thought Kevin Overton did for the most part. He didn't feel like anybody else really did, and that's how you have a game where you only score 60 and you look up and you're like, this Purdue defense isn't as good as Arizona's or Michigan's, or it's definitely not Houston's, but they played a lot better defense against you. They got better defensive results against you. And again, it goes back to that make or miss game.
Now it is worth pointing out when you mention the offensive rebounds that Auburn missed 40 shots, right? So there were more opportunities. There are more opportunities for offensive rebounds for Auburn in that game. But you're right. It felt like Purdue was making their offensive rebounds count.
Yeah, 11
right?
offensive rebounds for Auburn and only 5 second chance points. Meanwhile, it's 9 and 15 for Purdue. Like that, it's a little thing, but it matters.
And we mentioned there were, I mean, because that was an aspect of Purdue's game. I mean, they're so hard to guard in their half court offense that when you force a miss, you have to get the ball because when they can get an offensive rebound, and so many of those guys know exactly where to go and what to do. And there were, I mean, just from memory, at least three-pointers off of offensive rebounds for Purdue in this game where it felt like, okay, well, that's a possession that was going Auburn's way until they didn't get the rebound.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn got out-rebounded in this game by a bigger team, yes, but also they missed a lot more shots. It's just that you just need more step up, with your offense. And that's one of those things where you watch and you're like, I mean, sometimes you just have a cold night shooting the ball, but when you have those cold stretches, you don't need to fall into forcing. Run something, In the second half for Auburn, I think reading the body language and kind of hearing what was going on because we were courtside, it was like Auburn was kind of like, okay, we're not going to win this game, more than likely. But can we win the second half? Can we hang in there? And they did until they missed a billion shots towards the end of the game, and Purdue hit theirs. And that's where it really swung. And so Kevin Overton did a really good job of scoring. Kevin Overton did a really good job of stepping up. I thought Auburn's defense, their defensive execution and their effort level was better than what we saw against Arizona and Michigan. Obviously, the points weren't, I think Purdue scored fewer points, but they also played at a slower pace. You didn't get the results you wanted, but you did get some step up from Kevin Overton when he had been challenged this week to do that. You just needed more. You needed one of either Pettiford. Honestly, to have a chance to beat Purdue, you probably needed all three of them to score really well, and then you needed more from your bench, obviously.
Speaking of Tahaad and to an extent KeShawn Murphy, they both left the game with injuries. Let's talk about that a little bit. You don't have an update. You don't have an update following the game, but it's that's going to be something to watch over these next couple of days because Auburn went into this game with some depth problems, and the thought that you may be, if the availability of either of those guys is in question, it really, really puts it's a lot for it's a lot of weight for the other guys to have on their shoulders.
2 weeks until you play your next quality opponent. That helps. You're not going to practice these next few days with the holiday break. That's going to help. There's never a good time to have an injury, but this is probably your best time to do it. Tahaad stepped on Filip Jovic's foot in the game and tweaked it. He can't, like I said earlier, he came back with a walking boot on at the end of the game. Murphy was walking around kind of fine at the end. I think that was kind of more of, okay, he tweaked it, this game's over. Kind of like what they did with Kevin Overton, just in a different way. It was like, let's get out of here without having to play him more against Chattanooga. Obviously, Auburn was winning that game, but, it's kind of the opposite in that with the approach with Murphy in this matchup against Purdue. But you're right, Dan.
I get the sense they're gonna err with caution. They're gonna err on the side of caution with KeShawn Murphy all season long.
They need
right?
to.
I would think that.
Yeah. And that's the problem. And that's the problem I think with this is just that in this game, Murph's minus 11 in 26 minutes, which is the second best on the team, second best plus minus on the team, and he played a good chunk of minutes. Like there are guys who played fewer minutes than him that had not as good a plus minuses. So it's like I thought when Murph was out there, he was able to really do a lot of the stuff that Auburn needed to do against their front court, like defending Clough especially, but also helping out with TKR. Obviously, the big Jacobson kid at 7'4". You felt better about the team's big. And so it's huge, right? And Tahaad Pettiford's your only returning player. He's your top player. He is your point guard. And, He's had really, really good games this season. This was another off night for him. It's really the second one he's had this season against good competition, NC State being the other one. But you need him healthy because I think your defense looks different in the backcourt when you have him out there. And so, basketball is a team game, right? And everybody contributes and depth matters and all that. But, Dan, if you made the argument that your starting center and your starting point guard are your two most important positions, like you need to have those guys healthy and ready and available, the fact that you're having these injury scares in this game, it adds insult to injury, or maybe injury to insult, or whatever you want to call it.
Injury to injury, I think is probably what you're salt in the wound.
Definitely salt in the wound.
Is what you could be talking about. And yeah, I think it just goes without saying that, I think one of the things we've learned in the non-conference is that as it stands right now, Auburn needs all hands on deck. Auburn needs, especially when it comes to the starters, Auburn needs everyone. I don't think Auburn's in a position to absorb many more losses when it comes to this roster and this rotation, and especially when you start taking out if foundational pieces have to start missing time, you're asking the other guys to do. I mean, you're already asking everybody to do a lot, and if somebody were to have to exit the rotation, unless you've got someone not in the rotation right now that you're going to slide in, taking someone out of the rotation right now, it really. I mean, we're talking about 8 people played against Purdue. Yeah. Tonight, right? I mean, it's like if you were to talk about one or two of those guys being unavailable, it's just a real that's a huge ask with pretty much anyone left on the schedule for Auburn.
And look, Auburn shrunk its rotation toward the end of last season, but they still had guys if they wanted to go away from that, right? This is out of necessity. This is different, this season because of your injury issues and your concerns there. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's got to keep an eye on that. But like I said, the fact that Auburn's got a break here will really, really help. So, all right. Yeah, just that Purdue game again, Auburn's got to play better. They got to do better in, overcoming their weaknesses, playing to their strengths more often. I also thought Purdue just played a really great game and hit shots and hit some tough shots, and Auburn just had a really cold night shooting the ball, and that's how a game that wasn't as bad as the other two ends up looking quite the same. And, I think Pearl said after the game that people don't want to hear that necessarily. And people aren't going to agree. There are people who are listening to this that don't agree, and you're entitled to that. But I do think Auburn looked different in this game in terms of how they got there. They obviously need to get better, and they obviously need to improve. But, 8-4 with the schedule they played is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. And I just really want to see here coming up, Dan, I'm really interested in this. So Auburn plays Queens next. And then their first 6 games in SEC play are at Georgia, home against Texas A&M, home against Arkansas, at Missouri, home against South Carolina, at Ole Miss, before you play Florida on the road. That's a third of your SEC schedule right there. It's not a bad draw. Now, Auburn's got to play well to do well against that stretch. But there's not a, oh, God, look at this matchup. What are you going to do in this situation type of game.
Where's the Arkansas game?
The second one. It's the home opener.
Okay. So, I mean, and the fact that, if Arkansas –
Oh, I'm sorry. The third one. Okay. It's the second home game. You play A&M, then you play Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas on the road would be a really tough sort of matchup, I think, early on for this team. But I think
you do that in a month. You do that on Valentine's Day.
But you're right. And we'll see what Georgia actually is. But I mean, I think that the fact that you've got 4, 5, 6 SEC games to start conference play where you feel like you've got more than a puncher's chance, you know, in some of these games, especially considering where some of them are located. I think that could be, that could be huge for this group, especially after some of the lumps they've taken in the last month.
I think if they can build up, and look, they're going to have to play well to win at Georgia. Georgia's offense is playing with all the confidence in the world right now. They're going to have to play well to beat Arkansas. Arkansas is a really good team with a lot of talent.
Thinking that Auburn against Purdue or Arizona or Michigan, it was like, oh, well, Auburn was good enough to win those games. It was just they were against really good teams. I think that could be like that alone could be mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Because I think Auburn's still got things to work on.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, it's like, yeah, better team played a lot better. Okay. They can get better from these games. I think the Houston game is an example of, man, you had a shot there. You had a really, really good shot there. And that Houston team obviously was different built than Purdue, Arizona, and Michigan for sure.
Do you want to break into?
Yeah,
is this where we go to the future?
Yeah, let's go to the future, Dan. Let's talk. And we don't have to go super super long on this, but how about an observe for? We'll go back and forth. What we're looking for, the focal points as Auburn transitions into the final non-conference game after Christmas, and then the start of SEC play, like we were saying, where if they play well, if this team plays what they're capable of to their ceiling, they could get off to a good start in SEC play. I really think that. But they got to get better, and they've got to build on. They got to be more of the team that you saw against St. John's and NC State, and less of the team you saw against, obviously, Arizona and Michigan, and parts of what you saw against Purdue. So I'll let you go first. What are you really, really focusing on with this team, coming off of the Christmas break?
I think that Tahaad is a spot where you can start, right? Because you've had glimpses of the player that you expected Tahaad Pettiford to be in his sophomore year. I think there have been some really impressive performances in these first 12 games, but there have also been some moments where it's been clear that he's a guy on. Even though he came back to Auburn, he's on a new team, right? Because no one else from last year's team is back, and it's basically as though he'd switch teams in the transfer portal because he's having to gel. Maybe it's not a new system for him to learn, but he's his role has changed and everyone around him has changed, and he seems to be wrestling with when to score and when to pass, right? When to create and when to be and when to be sort of focused on being the engine that gets the scoring done himself, and that's something that I think that as he figures out what works and as his teammates figure out his tendencies, if you're looking for reason to believe the offense will be better in the second half of the season or the next few games as opposed to what you've seen in the last few games, I would think that Tahaad finding that chemistry with his teammates or developing that chemistry with his teammates would be a big reason why Auburn could see that breakthrough in conference play.
Yeah, I think you need to see that kind of step forward from him on a more consistent basis. You look, he's had 4 games of 20-plus points this season, right? And Auburn won 3 of those 4, and 2 of them are 2 of their better wins. He had 15 against Houston. Obviously, the NC State game was one of his ones where he struggled to get anything going offensively. It's just, can he be more of a facilitator? Can he get more of those assists? Because the scoring is there, and it's not going to be there every single night. It wasn't there every single night last season. But how he comes back, obviously he's got to get healthy, but what does that look like for him? Because I think when he's on, he's a better defender. He's on offensively, he's a better defender, and vice versa, and he's a good leader for this team to have. But it's just, I think people were expecting – some people may have expected him to be, scoring 20 points a night, and it's just it's not the case. I think Auburn would be fine with him being, what we have seen, kind of the peaks of him, doing that with, maybe even scaling back a little bit of that just with more assist numbers and all that. And guys got to hit shots as well. But I'm looking at the assist turnover ratio for Tahaad in the second half, or I guess in SEC play. That's going to be a big, I think, contributing factor for Auburn. And then, we know he can get hot. We know he can take over a game. We know that's there. To me, Dan, it's like, what have we not quite seen on a more consistent basis from Tahaad Pettiford yet? Can he tap into it? Because this is a guy who led Auburn in assists last season and had a really good assist turnover ratio as a dude off the bench. It's obviously different because he's the focal point now, or he's one of the focal points of this offense, and teams have a book on him a little bit more. The older he gets, the more he plays. But, I think it's a good point. It's like, if we can get Tahaad, looking like that kind of, consistent lead dog guard, not just scoring but playmaking. I think if we see that here in this second half of the season, I think Auburn is a much better team for it. So yeah, that's a really good way to start it.
Would point out too, first game in a while where Tahaad doesn't go to the free throw line. Purdue, the first time I think,
they don't foul, man. They just don't foul.
Yeah, the only other game this season where Tahaad didn't attempt a free throw was Wofford, and it feels like that's something Auburn's gonna. I mean, even acknowledging that Purdue is one of the best defenses in the country at contesting without fouling.
Yep.
Part of getting this offense going is going to need to be Tahaad's willingness to get going downhill, go to the basket, not only because he can create off the drive and kick game that way, but also he's a good finisher and he's an excellent free throw shooter, right? And you'd like to see Tahaad, getting himself more active and getting himself trips to the free throw line, and that's something that in 25 minutes did not attempt a free throw today. I mean, that's something that I think is going to be is just. I mean, he's such a dynamic player in that aspect of his game, being able to get going off the bounce to the basket. It's something that you hope he can find more of in conference play.
My first point, but number 2 here, can Auburn be a more disruptive defense? I don't think it's going to be an elite defense this season because I don't think it has elite defenders, and it doesn't have the continuity and the chemistry and a lot of that comes with being a lot of your best defenses in college basketball are teams that either have a lot of experience coming back and a lot of continuity together, or in some cases it's like Michigan and Duke, right? Well, Michigan had the best transfer portal class in the country, and Duke had the best recruiting class in the country. Well, Auburn's not going to get either of those, much more often than not. Like, it would be, if Auburn ever signs either the top transfer portal class or the top recruiting class in college basketball in a year, I will be very surprised. It's just not, things are different, right? And I think for Auburn, though, what can you do to overcome the lack of the rim protection that you usually have, the lack of that experience? What can you do? Can you do the stuff that you said that you were going to want to focus on more this season? Just right now, Auburn's defensively, I'm looking at KenPom, Auburn's effective field goal percentage on defense is the lowest it's been since, oddly enough, the first Final Four year. Or I guess it's the highest it's been, the worst it's been since the first Final Four year. What did that Final Four team do, though? They were the second best team in the country in forcing turnovers. Auburn currently 173rd in that. Last year's team was not great at forcing turnovers. The last couple have not been great at. Auburn has changed the way they've done that since that Final Four team. However, they've been better half-court defenses. Auburn just hadn't been that case. Can they be more disruptive there? Teams are shooting really, really well from them from deep, 34% from deep. They got to tighten up on that. They're not fouling a lot, which is something they did a ton of these last few seasons. But can you be more physical? Maybe you can afford to foul a little bit more. I will say, though, Auburn's 30th in free throw rate in college basketball this year on defense. Opponents are shooting. They have the lowest. Opponents have the highest combined free throw percentage against Auburn than any other defense in college basketball. So it's like Auburn's fouling guys not a ton, but they're hitting them when they do. So tough break there. Got to cut down on the assists. Got to cut down on the 3-point attempts and crank up the pressure on defense. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Dan. Can Auburn's backcourt push it, be more aggressive, do some of those things to be disruptive? Like you saw some of that in spurts against Purdue. Just need to do it more frequently. Do it against teams that aren't, the elites of the elites in college basketball on offense. Maybe you can find some more success with that. That's the thing. Again, like I said earlier, you're not going to wave a magic wand and all your size and depth problems are going to be magically healed in season. That's just not how it works. You're in this position. You wish you weren't in this position, but you're in this position. You got to make the most of it because that's just where you're at. And so for Auburn, I think you saw some seeds of here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do a better job of this moving forward against Purdue. Can they do it a lot more frequently against the competition they got going ahead? I want to see more pressure. I want to see more disruptiveness. I want to see just more of the stuff that I think Auburn has to do to deal with the fact that when teams get around the rim, they're going to score more than they did against Auburn these last few seasons. It's just how the roster's built.
You mentioned it. Yeah, last year's team, I don't think they were selling out for turnovers, right? Because they really thought that they were effective enough at forcing you to take a contested shot.
Yeah, it's such a good half-court defense.
And collecting the rebound. Yeah, when field goal percentage defense is your is sort of like one of your calling cards. You can force turnovers, and that's great. But the fact is, like you're clamping teams down, and you're comfortable with them taking shots because you'll force a miss and you'll collect a rebound, and the possession will be over that way. This team, yeah, you're right. They're going to have to gamble more. They're going to have to get more aggressive, and they're going to have to find ways to, and that can blow up in their faces at times, right? I mean, I guess that's that's the lesson there is that if you have to take those kind of chances as a defense in order to in order to impact the game. You hope those risks can be as calculated as possible because you're right. This is a team that probably needs to keep teams uncomfortable before they even get into their half court offense.
Real quick, looking at KenPom right now, Auburn has played 4 of the top 17 offenses in college basketball this season. NC State being the 17th. The only 2 teams that are in that top 17 that Auburn has to play the rest of the season right now are, this is adjusted efficiency, Alabama twice, Vanderbilt. You play Bama on February 7th and March 7th. You play Vandy on February 10th. You have time before you have to play another elite defense. Now, Georgia's on the cusp. Arkansas is on the cusp. Oklahoma's got a good offense. Missouri's got a good offense. Florida obviously has a good offense. Like, there's a lot that are right there, but in terms of the very, very best, you don't face one until you face Alabama in more than a month, like a month and a half. So what can you do in the meantime to get ready for teams like that? And I think it's just going to be, you gotta press more, you gotta gamble more, you gotta get after it more with your backcourt and use maybe some of your quickness and your athleticism in your front court to your advantage, so that the next time you do play an awesome offense, and look, Georgia might end up being that team, but the next time you play one of the elites of the elites on offense, you're better prepared to hang with them on defense. All right, what do you got?
Let's talk about the perceived depth issues there, right? Because I think this is this is a bit of a surprise in that there are multiple players that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, certainly before the season started, as potential contributors. Some of them, I mean, obviously it's a tough break with Emeka Oporum. Hopefully he's okay. It's not really a basketball situation there. Bashir, it's been a strange season, is sort of how I would describe, his first year.
Yeah, he had a sickness that kept him out at the last 2 games, maybe just the third game against in Vegas, and he has not dressed out since.
Right,
and he's had a back injury. He's had a back injury that he's had to deal with pretty much all since he got here.
And I would say that Bashir, Magwood, and Simon have all felt Stevens' wrath with at times this year because of their defense, right? And that's something where you didn't see. You saw Magwood for 15 minutes, a lot more after the Tahaad ankle injury against Purdue. I
thought Magwood did a lot better in this game. I mean, I thought he played better on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I think that's a guy who, I mean, maybe the most impressive freshman as far as the steps he's taken from the start of the season to now. I mean, Sebastian's in the starting lineup, and Jovic's been in the rotation all season long too. But I've been really impressed with how Magwood has taken to college basketball. You still sort of wonder, like, of the guys that you're not seeing a ton of, like, is help on the way, or is the group that you saw today, those 8 players, is that going to be the is that who's got to fix this?
I wouldn't rule Walker out. I wouldn't rule Simon Walker out. I do think this would have been a bad matchup to throw him in against, because he has not been great on the defensive end, and it's like, good luck. Here's some of the best catch and shoot guards in the country, and Braden Smith. Have fun. Like,
here's some fifth-year seniors, by the way, like for a guy who just got here.
You're a child, and you're going to have to go up against these grown men out there. Yeah, I think it would have been tough, and you can make it happen without him. And look, I mean, I wrote it heading in this game. Defensive rating wise, 3 of Auburn's 4 best players this season is that Pettiford, Overton, and Elijah Freeman as well. So like you want those to have those guys. And look, man, one of the oldest guys you have on your team, and KeShawn Hall, he's got to be better on defense too. Like you got to have that kind of going. But yeah, you need to find that 9th man and maybe a 10th man if you can work some dark magic with the roster rules and all that. Might just be a JUCO guy. Might be a weird G League thing. I don't know. I do know though is that
on the drive on Friday, I suggested Brandon Frazier. By the way, he's 6'8". He's
he was a good football. I mean, he was a good basketball player.
He was a good basketball player.
I think his mom played collegiately.
He's bigger than just about anybody else you're going to bring in, and he's already enrolled at Auburn. But I mean, you're getting to when we're reaching that level of idea, it tells you about the need for again, and it's not so much a criticism of the guys currently playing. Right, no. But it's just the thought.
I would have loved to have seen a fully healthy season from Murphy. I really would. I mean, I think there's good stuff from him when he's out there consistently. But it's just, I mean, obviously he's had rotten luck with that. And
it feels unsustainable, right? As far as like to go with this with I mean, look, if everybody stays healthy. You maybe you have just enough, but you can make
it work. Yeah, you can make it work. I mean, I'm looking at bench minutes right now in college basketball. Auburn's bench minutes, according to KenPom right now, 29% bench minutes. That's the exact number that Florida had last year. Mm-hmm. Michigan, Kansas, Baylor, Tennessee, St. John's, Maryland. St. Mary's, like all those were much even thinner benches than what Auburn has right now. So it's doable, but you have to bank on a lot to make that work. They need another guard to emerge as somebody that can play long term. And it might be Magwood playing more combo stuff if you have a healthy Pettiford. And then what can they do if they can find somebody to come out with the an extra big man, like an extra big could be big for them. All right, my 4th point, Dan, I kind of alluded to it earlier. We'll see. I want to see how much of Auburn's start to the season, this 8-4 start, was a product of its schedule or a product of the way this team is. And the truth might be in the middle. But if it's a spectrum, or it was, this is the schedule, or it was this team, where is it? Where's that line at? And I think we're going to find that out in the first few SEC games, because I think these are winnable games for Auburn. I'm not expecting them to go 6-0 or any reason, but like if they can get off to a good start, if they go 4-2, 5-1, like you're in a much different position. You have a much better look, and it's like, we got whooped against 3 really elite teams. If Auburn's looking around and saying that, like, we got whooped by 3 really, really good teams, came close to beating a 4th one in Houston, and
didn't play any of those games at home. Worth mentioning when you talk about those 4 games. It's
a brutal schedule. It's a top 15 schedule in college basketball this season. Stephen Pearl after the game said, maybe 4 or 5 teams would have had a better record than us going through that in the country if they'd have played that same schedule. To that point, non-conference schedule. The only teams with tougher non-conference schedules this season with Auburn and have more wins are Michigan and Kansas. That's it. Bama's 8-3. They do not play another tough one. They got Kennesaw State and Yale to wrap up non-con play. So, they'll end up with a better record. But, if you would just say Alabama, Michigan, and Kansas are the only teams, with a better record than Auburn that have played a tougher schedule, I mean, Florida and St. John's are right behind them right now in the top 20 with the same amount of losses. So, yeah, that's I want to see where that line is, and
well, it's about what you learned. It's about what you learned in non-conference play, right? Like last year's team, you went into the season thinking, okay, this team could be as good as anyone in college basketball, and the non-conference slate showed that. And going into SEC play, it was like, okay, well, you're in a position of strength, and teams need breaks, and teams need things, everything to go right in order to hang with you in SEC play. This year, it feels like what you learned is that Auburn can compete, but you're still gonna find out a lot more about this team in SEC play than you did last year's team. Right, like it felt like a lot
100%,
a lot of the learning was like this time last year you were talking about a team that was like you could draw conclusions and be right about those conclusions based on how the rest of the season was going to go.
Last year I came back from Maui saying, okay, this might be one of the best teams in the country and maybe ever for Auburn. Might be the best team ever for Auburn. By the time they whooped Purdue in Birmingham, I was like, oh, they have a chance to go put up like a high score on the analytics boards, and they did. They had an awesome season, obviously. I mentioned this earlier, and I'll say it again. If you'd have told me at the beginning of the year, hey, Auburn's going to come after that Purdue game, they're 8-4, I'd have been like, yeah, I could see that. And it's like, well, your 4 losses were Houston, Purdue, Michigan, and Arizona, and I'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense. I think the thing where where I've changed, or I guess I've had to shift what I thought this team was going to be potentially this season, what I've had to shift a little bit was, okay, the margins of defeat, especially in the Arizona-Michigan games, how those looked, those were a little more surprising. I thought Auburn would be able to put up more of a fight in those games, and they didn't. And this Purdue game, obviously, the scoreline didn't show it, and they went off. Again, Auburn got blown out by Purdue on Saturday night because their offense, which had been their strength, did not hold up against, again, a team that has so much firepower. That's my thing. Is like, I think the ceiling of this team remains the same, if that makes sense, where it's like, I don't think they're an elite college basketball team. I think they're a potentially good team, or potentially really good team in a conference that is lacking a true juggernaut at the moment, that they can be in the mix to be one of the better teams in this league, to make it to the NCAA tournament, to have potentially a chance to get better as the season goes on and make some noise down the stretch. I don't think that's changed for me at any point. Like, I don't think that my view of this team's ceiling has not changed. And I think the St. John's and NC State wins, Oregon wasn't great. And look, the Bethune-Cookman and Chattanooga games were kind of like, oh, that's not what you want to do in these type of games. So that makes sense. I think the floor, for me, has been lowered because we have seen when it gets sideways for Auburn, it could get really sideways. And, yes, they might not face a team quite like several of the teams they've lost to this point in the season in SEC play. They might not. There's potential. Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, all these kind of Vanderbilt. We'll see what Georgia and some of these teams in Kentucky for sure are capable of.
And these are teams, it's worth pointing out too, these are teams that don't have the muscle of an Arizona or a Michigan or a Purdue in the front court. You just listed some teams that can shoot. Mm-hmm. Right, and it's like, and if they can, part of the reason Purdue blew this game open was what they were able to do at the 3-point line, and there are teams that will be able to attack Auburn really effectively from the outside.
Yeah, and it's like, the two teams with the size that I think that is as comparable as any, even if it's not exact. I think the two SEC teams with the size that are as comparable to those teams that we've talked about are Florida and Kentucky. Dan, what are the two things Florida and Kentucky, or what is the thing that Florida and Kentucky have struggled with this season so far? Shooting the ball.
Shooting the three, yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously not an issue for Purdue and Arizona and Michigan. So it's like, it's going to be different, right? It is going to be different. And so, like I said, that first third of the SEC schedule, there is potential for some momentum. There's potential for some build-up. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot in those first 6 games. But I keep going back to there. I think none of these losses has surprised me that they are losses. I think a couple of the ways that they went down surprised me. And look, the Houston game, they had a chance to win that game. They had a really good shot at winning that game, and that showed me a lot about this team. It also and then the next 2 blowout losses were like, oh, this is what it looks like when it can go wrong. And they were against elite teams. And again, this one's like that. I think Florida and Kentucky are closer to Houston, or like the best of the SEC is going to be closer to Houston than they are the way up there. And Alabama's obviously, nuts in terms of shooting the ball and what they do on offense for sure. But again, I just like how much has changed about my outlook for this team. Not a ton. I do think things could get the floor could be lower if Auburn doesn't improve the things they need to improve. But the ceiling is still kind of where I thought it was going to be at this point in the year, and that's where you go with 8-4. It's like 8-4 is like it's okay. It's not great. It's okay.
This could be something of an overreaction. I'd love to know what you think of like seeing the way some of these losses have gotten away from Auburn at the end. I would think that those first few SEC games really matter because you don't want to dig yourself a big hole.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
you don't want to find yourself in a situation where it's like, yeah, okay, because if,
because you're not going to play. You're not play these first 6 SEC games. You're not playing a team of that caliber, right?
Yeah.
So how do you handle adversity when it does come? How do you bounce back? I don't think Auburn's going 6-0 to start SEC play, but can they get to 4-2 and 5-1? Can they get off to a good start? And what happens if they don't? Because that middle 6 in that schedule is tough.
Well, and we've mentioned the St. John's and Oregon wins are impressive this year, and NC State for that matter too. But none of those were true road games, right? So we're still going to see this is a team that's going to go when they play at Georgia. It's the first. It's the first true. I mean, I know you had some neutral site games that were neutral, but not really.
Hold on. They played at Arizona and got whooped.
Oh, that's what I mean. Arizona was a true road game,
and I'll tell you, tonight was a road game.
And tonight was a true road. So, but I think that the Arizona notwithstanding, that Georgia game is still you haven't seen Auburn. The best Auburn performances this year have not come in true road games.
Yes.
Either,
yes,
right? So
that is fair. Yes.
So that game against Georgia is going to be that's another test for Auburn to show you're right. The Arizona was a true road game, but
their best performance against an elite team this year was in a virtual home game.
Right. So it's going to that game when Auburn starts SEC play that is it means obviously it's a huge test for Georgia too because you could make Auburn's the best team
and we've seen really good Auburn teams go out there and be in, pardon the pun, dogfights with that team.
Yeah.
And
so that's where it's going to be this is a those first few games in conference play just feel like they're going to be really informative as far as what kind of team you've got and what kind of season you're going to have.
All right. That'll do it. Like I said, you were hearing this on Monday at the earliest. Appreciate you guys listening, checking it out. I know it's not a fun one, but that's why we wanted to kind of finish on a spinning it ahead and just be like, okay, let's look ahead at this point. There will be a newsletter of some kind on Tuesday. I will write that on Sunday, and it'll be out on Tuesday. As I mentioned in our last episode, I have a memorial service that I'm a part of on Monday, so I'm going to be kind of away from everything work-related on Monday, but be back at it. Obviously we'll have something on Tuesday, and obviously going in to Christmas, continue to give gift subscriptions. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate all the shout-outs. Appreciate the people I saw in Indiana. Recommendations. I'm not done with my trip yet. So recording this late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. I don't fly back home until Sunday evening. So I'm going to have at least one more meal, good meal in Indianapolis. that I want to do. So real quick observer for y'all. I got to figure out what I'm going to do on Sunday, and I've got recommendations for plenty of people, and so I'm going to have to pick through that. But on Friday evening, I had dinner with a lot of Auburn people, like Auburn media people, media relations, like staffers in the past, including, Andy Burcham was also there as well. Got to eat with Andy. And so we went to this place. It was, when I got here, I said, like, the wind chill was 9. And it was like, on Friday night, it was like we didn't want to go far from where we were at the hotel here in downtown Indianapolis. And so Andy, being a native Midwesterner, was like, look, we're in Indiana. We're in the Midwest. The specialty is the pork tenderloin. You know what I'm talking about? The massive pork tenderloin sandwich.
I figured he'd know like a steakhouse or something to find in India.
So he was
the one Ron Swanson used to go to, right?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So this meal is like, all right, one of the pork tenderloin sandwich, and so like the group we were in, we were like, we're Andy's gonna get one. We're gonna get one, and so we went to this place not too far from the hotel that was really good, very much a very laid back kind of place, and they had a really good pork tenderloin sandwich. And Andy was like, all right, you got to get it. I'd never had one before. I'd always seen them, and got it. Really good. It's a very interesting concept, but I enjoyed it. It was very good. So shout out to the pork tenderloin sandwich. All right, here's the other one. So for lunch on Saturday, I got a recommendation from a couple of people about this. So the famous steakhouse in Indianapolis is St. Elmo's. It's the one they go to on Parks and Rec. And next door, there is a more kind of casual, kind of a little bit more laid back version of the steakhouse called Harry and Izzy's, which is like named after the former owners there. So I was told to go there, and it's like you can get in there a little bit easier. It won't cost quite as much. Go at lunch. Perfect. Do that. Walk in. They had a lunch special that was right up my alley. You could have so it's the famous shrimp cocktail. Now, have you heard about the shrimp cocktail in Indianapolis?
Yeah.
When I say, and I'd had it before, the only other time I've been to Indy, when I was at the Athletic, I went, tried it, and I knew it was crazy. But like this lunch special was like you got sliders. And these were filet mignon sliders, so like you got to really sample the steak without ordering like a whole one. And then you can either get super salad. They had a prime rib chili as their soup. Got that, was excellent. Had that, and then they gave you side, and then it was like 2 things of shrimp in the shrimp cocktail. And it was like all of that was like $20-$25. So I was like, oh, that's a great deal. I'm gonna do that. So I do that, and they give me the food, and I'm by myself. And I remembered the shrimp cocktail was crazy. I love shrimp, and I like shrimp cocktail. And I remembered it was crazy, and I was like, I can do it. I'm grown. And like, if you've never had it before, the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's is like it was seasoned by Satan himself. It is a visceral reaction to the horseradish in it. It burns every part of your mouth that it touches. Burns. I'm not saying, oh, it's spicy. No, it burns. It is.
Yeah, it's fiery. It's a different sort of
It's different. It's not like this is. It's not even like pepper, man. It is like there is something hateful in that horseradish, like crazy. I did eat it though. It was really, really good. And I also had.
By the way, you can buy the St. Elmo's cocktail sauce, like if you want to. Yeah. If you want to experience what Justin is talking about.
Yeah, and if you throw it at a car, you could blow it up. Like, yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm good. The waiter was like, show me the dessert menu. And I'm like, maybe. I usually don't get dessert. Like, very, very rarely do I ever get dessert when I eat at restaurants. I just don't do it a lot. But I felt like I deserved it after fighting through the shrimp cocktail. Long story short, this place had a This place had a bread pudding. I didn't get it. They had a bread pudding that they told me that the guy told me like, hey, if you get this bread pudding, it takes us 30 minutes to make it, like to prepare it, and it's like big enough for several people. And I'm like, well, I'm just by myself. But I had a brownie that the brownie had hot fudge, ice cream, whipped cream, candy pecans, and a Woodford Reserve caramel sauce, which is what they had on the bread pudding as well. So I got kind of a little bit of a taste of that. Phenomenal, great stuff. Can't wait to see what I end up doing on Sunday. Between working, I'm gonna try to walk somewhere and get another really good meal. But that's the Grubserver review of Indianapolis. The Midwest goes hard, man, especially when it comes to their meat, and they're obviously trying to kill you. But I do want to ask you one thing before we go down. One thing, because I don't know where we're going to do our next podcast. One thing real quick. You saw the new Avatar.
I did see Avatar 3, Avatar Fire and Ash.
I've heard mixed reviews. So give me your take.
It is a wild ride. Like even by Avatar standards.
Even by Big Jim standards.
This thing is a wild ride. I would say at this point, you know what you're getting into with Avatar films on the big screen. If you enjoyed the first two, I think you're really gonna like this one. If you were more on the fence about the first two, James Cameron has not changed course in order to win you over. Like,
I heard the third one was a lot like the second one.
It's and you can I believe they were filmed back to back, and like there was thoughts at times of like, was it going to be one big movie and stuff like that. Like you can look, but I will say like there are notes of T2, there are notes of Aliens, there are notes of Titanic. Like wow. you can tell like this is Cameron going for it, and there are, I mean, multiple times in this movie you're presented with a shot or a sequence that's one of the wildest, craziest things you've ever seen, and then it's topped 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
And the final, I would put the final hour or so, like the battle/action sequence that takes up, most of the fifth hour of the movie. I would put it up against any like big battle or action sequence that you're going to find in like the history of science fiction films and fantasy films. Like this thing is just, it's full throttle, and it's, I mean, this movie is, and it still hits, it hits you, I mean, incredibly with these emotional notes too, at times, which is why, because you're watching 9-foot tall, like, blue video game characters talking to each other, and so you wouldn't think that it's going to have those, that emotional weight, but there are times when it really does. So I would, I mean, it's the movies, man. I mean, it's this one's, I mean, this is why we go enjoy the silver screen. So I just, who am I to say anything but, if like James Cameron is in that category to me, where it's like, if it was worth his time to make this movie, then I'm going to go ahead and decide that it's, at least testing it out is going to be for me too. And I was blown away. So it's like, again, you know what you're getting into with the Avatar trilogy at this point, but this one was, I mean, he's rocking and rolling, and this one is it's a sight to be seen.